Hello, I'm Nick Rogers. I'm the Assembly Member for Hounslow, Richmond and Kingston. In some ways, I've got quite an old-fashioned sense of public service. I think that if you feel you have something to contribute to the country, to your city, to your community, that you almost have an obligation to actually step forward. And I've always been interested in the way that particularly cities are run, particularly London is run. And I've always been drawn to kind of the nitty gritty of what keeps the city ticking. My number one rule for politics is, if in doubt, go and knock on some doors. Because if there's anything you want to find out about, if there's any policy you want to test, if there's anything you want to hear people's views on, there is absolutely no substitute for going, knocking on the door, introducing yourself and asking a question, having an honest conversation with voters. The first election I got involved with was the 2001 general election when I was living back in Kent. And again, it was a case of, I thought I had certain things I believed in, and I felt that almost obligation that I had to get involved and stand up for the things that I believed in. So I got involved and helped out with the local campaign where I lived. 2001 general election, obviously not brilliant result for the Conservatives, but I stuck with it. I started my public transport career back when I left university, and I started at Transport for London on the graduate scheme, and then spent over a decade working in railway operations, often at the front line. So I was one of the managers of Waterloo Station. I've been an incident controller, managing some pretty serious incidents that happen on the railway network. But really, for me, it's always been about London. It's about the city that I love. So when the opportunity came to stand as an Assembly candidate, this is way back now in 2019, I jumped at it. It was a dream job. I think the role of the London Assembly member is to lift the bonnet of the city and to see what's going on underneath. We are tasked with scrutinising the activities of the mayor and investigating issues of interest to London. So that's kind of the strap line for what the Assembly does. But really, what we do is look at the whole range of what the mayor is responsible for. And if you just think about that, it's huge. Transport for London, that's a £10 billion organisation. The Met Police, largest police force in the country and one of the foremost police forces in the world. Housing, he has billions of pounds set aside to build housing in London. And that's why we do reports. So, for example, I did a report about transport in southwest London. I'm working on a report about co-housing at the moment. I do think it's a license to kind of poke your nose in to the city's business. My favourite mayor was a guy called Fiorello LaGuardia, who was mayor of New York City in the 30s. And his catchphrase was, if a sparrow dies in Central Park, I feel responsible. I think that's the kind of attitude you need from a mayor. And I don't think that that's the attitude that Londoners would recognise in Sadiq Khan.